Today we are starting a new book which is titled Atmabodha. And the tradition is that each of these books, and these are all scriptural texts, they all have a invocatory prayer before we get on to the main book. And the invocatory prayer for Atmabodha is a different one than what we usually chant for the Bhagavad Gita. So we have plenty of time to get used to it, to this invocation. So focus on this invocation while I chant. Om Pratah Smarami Hridhi Samspuradatma Tattvam Satchit Sukham Paramaham Sagatim Turiyam Yat Swapna Jagara Sushuptamaveti Nityam Tad Brahma Nishkalamaham Nacha Bhuta Sangha.
Papanam Shantanam Vitaraginam Mumukshunam Apekshoyam Atmabodho Vidhiyate Bodhonya Sadhanebhyo Hi Sakshan Mokshaika Sadhanam Pakasya Varnivajnanam Vina Moksho na siddhyati Avirodhitaya karma Na vidyam vinivartayet Vidya vidyam nihantyeva Tejastimira sanghavat Parichinna iva jnanat Tannashe sati kevalaha Swayam prakashate hyatma Megha paryem shumaniva Ajnana kalusham jivam Jnanabhyasad vinirmalam Kritva jnanam swayam nashyet Jalam katakarenuvat.
What is the most difficult knowledge? There are so many knowledges in the world. The most difficult knowledge is that which you have not encountered so far. See, what happens is when you're gaining knowledge, the focus is on acquisition of information. Your focus is external. How can I gain more knowledge? How can I be more learned? These are what we call as objective knowledges. So objective knowledges are easier to gain than the subjective knowledge. There's only one subjective knowledge, which is the knowledge of the self, to know yourself. And everybody in the world are experts in everything else except themselves. The most successful person knows everything about the world but doesn't know about himself or herself. Their essential nature, their original nature, nobody knows. Oblivious to it. That was the rallying cry of the Greek philosophers. They had the slogan, Nati Sutan, which meant know thyself. That was their maxim, to know thyself. And no less a person than the great philosopher Socrates. He practiced it. He didn't just preach it, he practiced knowing himself. finding out who they are. Who am I? The Bhagavad Gita calls it as the royal knowledge and the royal secret. It says a royal knowledge is the highest of all knowledges. It would probably get the king's warrant, the king's seal. Understand? And it is the royal secret. Royal secret because nobody knows it. Secret is something that you don't know. The self within is dark to you, is ignorant to you. You don't know it. In that sense, it is a secret. And it is a supreme secret, royal secret, because nobody knows, including the royal family. They also don't know it. What is the self within? In fact, Socrates, during his lifetime, he had remarked, he said, "So it seems to me ridiculous." Socrates is speaking, he's saying, "So it seems to me ridiculous when I do not yet know myself to investigate other things which to me are irrelevant." He says, when I don't know myself, what else am I doing? I don't understand. Everything else I'm doing, everything else I'm investigating is pointless, is irrelevant, because I don't know myself. When he puts it that way, it makes so much sense. What are you doing in the world? I have my duties, I have my obligation. What is the primary obligation, the first obligation? Know yourself. Without knowing yourself, you're attending to everything else. Socrates says it doesn't make sense, it's meaningless. The Mundaka Upanishad, they put it very powerfully, and they say, desist from all other talks. Desist from all other talks. In other words, if if this line of thinking doesn't take you to the self, the Upanishad is saying, leave it. It's not worth it. Is this taking me to the self? I pursue it. If it is not taking me to the self, I leave it. Desist from all of the talks, because what use is it? What use is it for you? It is not helping you to find out who you are. What use is it? In the another scripture, which is also written by Adi Shankara, Shankara gives a beautiful example. He says, once you know yourself, everything else becomes known. Once you find out who you are, everything else becomes clear. And the example he gives is, it's like showing the direction north. When you point out the direction north, what happens? Immediately, you don't only know north, you know all other directions. You understand? So suppose I say this is north, what do you understand immediately? This is south. You understand this is east. You understand that is west. Not only these four directions, you understand it's northeast, northwest, southeast, southwest, south, southwest, north, northeast. Hundreds of directions fall in place, but all that I have told you is what? Just one direction, north. He says that is the scriptures. So all that the scriptures are doing is, it is pointing to the self. Once you know yourself, you can work out everything else in life. Everything else falls in place. Nothing falls in place because you don't know the self. And you are going to consultants, you're going to other people to figure out all those things. You will never be able to figure out everything until you find out who you are. And that's why this book is a very important book in the scriptural tradition, because Atmabodha literally means knowledge of the self. As I said, the Greeks used to say, know thyself. They would have probably read the Atmabodha. You understand? So you see that. What is the meaning of Atmabodha? Atma means the self, the Atman within. Bodha means knowledge. Atmabodha, the knowledge of the self. The rallying cry is to know thyself, find out yourself. a person who has found out who they are, a person who's established in that superconscious state, is a person who can write such a book. Anybody can't write such a book. A person who is in that superconscious state is one who can write such a book. That's why the scriptures, not only the Atmabodha, even the Vedas, they are known as apaurisheya. Apaurisheya means not of a human. The way the scriptures are given, the Vedas are given, he says it is not written by a human. Apaurisheya, not of a human. Now, what it means is, of course, it's a human being who's written it. You don't have to, you don't take it literally, but it figuratively, what it means is, when that human being is in that superconscious state, it is as if that Atman wrote through the human being. As if there was some divine power which picked up the pen and wrote it, like Ganesha wrote the Mahabharata. It's like that, as if somebody picked it up and wrote it. Some divine power. What is the divine power? It's the self within. And Adi Shankara, who is the author of this book, was a person who was in that superconscious state, a self realized person. And Shankara was given the title of Acharya. Acharya means a teacher, a universal teacher. So his name was Shankara. Shankaracharya, teacher. Shankara, who's the teacher. And then the prefix Adi was added because there was a lineage of Shankaracharyas who followed. Adi means first, the first Shankaracharya. Even today, you go to India, you will get Shankaracharyas. Don't mistake them for to be the author of Atmabodha. So it's the first Shankaracharya who wrote this book. So Adi Shankaracharya. It was actually Shankara. The name of the author is Shankara. He was born in the 8th century CE, the Common Era, 8th century. Shankaracharya was born. He was born into a pious Nambudri Brahmin family in Kerala, in the village of Kaladi. His father died early, which was very useful for him because the circumstances which followed paved the way to an uninterrupted life, to an unobstructed life of sannyas. So there was nobody to prevent him. The father passed away, and his mother was not sure because by the age of 8, Shankara wanted to take up to sannyas to become an ascetic. Can you imagine? Suppose your 8-year-old son comes and says, Mom, Dad, I want to go and become a sannyas. Ah, you will start crying. Say, what do you do? Don't say like that. I love you so much. Don't leave our house. Don't. You will crumble completely. So you can imagine the plight of his mother. Mother heard that. He said, I want to go. She said, what are you saying? No, 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 no. Don't do all this. Don't. So he loved his mother. So he said, okay, mother, when you give me permission, I'll go. He stayed behind. And like I said, circumstances fell in place in such a way that one day he was swimming, he was taking bath in the pond, and a crocodile came and caught his leg. And he's a little boy, so he cried out to his mother, Mom, Mom, I think I'm going to die. At least at this time, you tell me I'll be a sannyasi, so I'll die a sannyasi. Even if I can't live as a sannyasi, let me die. So the mother said, okay, fine, I give you permission. At that point, the crocodile left him and went. So the crocodile came for that purpose to help him get that permission from mother. So if you want permission from your parents, you know what to do. No, don't try all that. Okay, what I'm saying. So mother gave him permission. Finally, he said, "Okay, son, you go." And he said, "Mom, whenever you need me, you call me. I'll be there." So you're still aware of his obligation, right till the end. So Shankara, he died by the age of 32. And what he didn't achieve within that age of 32, nobody's achieved it. So, at a young age, he accomplished so many things. So Shankara, he went to his guru. He sought a guru and he found a guru in Govinda Bhagavad Pada. Govinda Bhagavad Pada was Shankara's guru. And Govinda Bhagavad Pada's guru was the great Gaudapada. Why I say the great Gaudapada is because one of the subtlest Upanishads, of all the 108 Upanishads, the subtlest Upanishad is the Mandukya Upanishad. It's the subtlest because it just consists of 9 mantras. That's all. The entire Upanishad is only 9 mantras. And the only person who has commented on those 9 mantras is Gaudapada. The Gaudapada's Karika is that which explains the Mandukya Upanishad. So Gaudapada was the grand guru of Shankara. He belongs to such an illustrious lineage. And when he met his guru, Govinda Bhagavad Pada, Govinda Bhagavad Pada asked him, "Who are you? What have you come for?" Suddenly a boy appears, he says, "Who are you? What have you come for?" That time, in that young age of 8, age of 10, he composed verses. It's called Atma Shatakam. 6 verses he composed and he sang to his guru. Mano Buddhyankar Chittani Naham. That's how he starts. He says, "I am not the mind, I am not the intellect. Mano Buddhyankar Chittani Naham." And then he says, Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham. I am that Shiva, I am that Shiva, that super conscious state. I am that Shiva, I am that Shiva. As a 10-year-old boy is giving that reply to his guru, the guru felt like falling at his feet. You understand? So who is this? Who is this boy who's come? So then the guru had no choice but accept him as a disciple, and he taught him. And when Shankara learned and he started teaching this knowledge to the world, what was extraordinary about Shankara was his unique skill in all the 3 yogas. Very rarely you find spiritual people are accomplished in all the 3 yogas. Usually they are accomplished in one yoga. Either they are a great jnani, a great person of knowledge, or they could be a great bhakta or a great karma yogi. Shankara was all 3, which is very rare in the pantheon of the great sages. See, it is like, suppose you go to a specialist, you get a cardiologist, okay? You want something to do with your heart, you go to the cardiologist. But the cardiologist specializes in that. He doesn't know about ENT. He doesn't know about skin. You understand? Then you go to a skin specialist separately. You go to ENT separately. Suppose there's one specialist who is a cardiologist, who is a skin specialist, who is an ENT specialist, all in one. Where do you don't get like that? It's not easy to get somebody who specializes in all 3. That is Shankara. In the sense, all the 3 yogas he specialized in. So first, he shown as a jnana yogi. Jnana yoga, for those who are not familiar, is the path of knowledge where you employ your intellect. So Shankara had a brilliant intellect which he used for jnana yoga. The commentaries which Shankara gave in those early days are the commentaries which are still considered the orthodox commentaries. Particularly the commentary on Brahma Sutra was one of his best commentaries. And then he wrote the commentary on the Gita and the Mukhya Upanishad, the principal Upanishad, 10 Upanishads. He wrote the commentaries on that. There was also an original work of Shankara called Upadesha Sahasri, 1000 Teachings. That was his original work. He also popularized the method of debating. It's called Kandana Mandana. And he kept that debating tradition alive. In fact, he used to go around debating. And there was again a famous incident where another great thinker called Mandana Mishra, he debated against Shankara. Mandana Mishra's wife was the mediator. Shankara and Mandana Mishra were debating, and Mandana Mishra's wife, Saraswati, she was the mediator. She declared Shankara winner. You understand? So finally, Mandana Mishra fell at Shankara's feet and became his disciple. He followed Shankara rest of his life. He and his wife both followed him. See, look at the broad-mindedness in those days. You understand? There was no ego saying that this is I am right, you're wrong. If they found that somebody else was better than them, they followed. That humility was there. So this is the combination you should have when you develop an intellect. Your intellect should be sharp, but at the same time humble. You should be able to bow down to somebody who is better than you when you find a person like that. Second is Bhakti Yoga. And Shankara was regarded and is still regarded as a great bhakta. Like I said, he was devoted to his mother. He performed his duties, and right at the end, when his mother was dying, he went back to her. She died in his arms, and he buried her, made sure he did his duties as a son. Everything he cleared, and he came. So he had that spirit of bhakti, that devotion. See, what is devotion? Devotion is the same as love. Love and devotion are the same emotion. When the emotion is directed towards those who are lower than you or at the same level, you use the word love. You love your family, you love your children, you love your pets. But when that emotion is directed to those who are higher than you use the word devotion. You're devoted to your parents, you're devoted to God. But in the case of both these emotions, whether it is love or devotion, it is that identification. You identify with the other person to such an extent you feel one with that person. And that bhakti of Shankara flowed through the many compositions that he made, like Achyutashtakam, Dakshinamurti Shostram, Annapurnashtakam. So great compositions. Even the Bhajagovindam is actually a devotional composition. So he excelled as a jnani, he excelled as a bhakta, and he excelled as a karma yogi. Shankara was a tireless worker. Like I said, even today, you go to India, you'll get Shankaracharyas. How is that possible? Because he established the tradition. He established 4 monasteries in India. They're called mutts in Sanskrit. Mutts are the monasteries. And these monasteries were established in the 4 corners of India. In the north, he established in Badrinath, the south in Sringeri, east in Puri, the west in Dwarka. So 4 corners. The idea was to keep this knowledge alive for future generations. And even today, these 4 mutts are still alive and the 4 Shankaras are still there. They're continuing this tradition. Now, where does Atmabodha, this particular scripture, this particular book, fit in terms of the various scriptures? Atmabodha is a prakarana grantha. Prakarana grantha means an introductory scripture, an introductory treatise. Prakarana grantha is different from Prasthanatraya, the original Vedantic books. The original scriptural books are called Prasthanatraya, which are 3 in number: Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, and Brahma Sutras. These 3 books carry original thinking. Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, Brahma Sutras, they carry the original. In fact, original thinking is from Upanishads. The source is Upanishads. But we are accommodating the Gita and the Brahma Sutras as well as the 3. All the other books which have followed after that, there is no original thinking. It is all thinking dependent upon these 3. So Prakarana Grantha, this original book, this book that Shankara has written, has no original thinking. All the thinking is derived from the Upanishads, from the Gita, from the Brahma Sutras. That is the difference between a Prakarana Grantha and a Prasthanatraya. See that? So Prakarana Grantha is Atmabodha, Tattvabodha, Bhajagovindam, Viveka Chudamani. All these are introductory scriptures. That is different from Prasthanatraya, which is the main scriptures. Introductory scriptures have come from the main scriptures. The reason why these introductory scriptures are essential is because these introductory scriptures help us to understand the main scriptures. The main scriptures are quite subtle. It's not easy to understand. It's like the theorems in mathematics. The theorems, which give pure mathematics, are very difficult to understand on their own. Then you have applied mathematics. Using applied mathematics, you understand pure mathematics. Pure mathematics is very difficult to understand on its own. So similarly, the main scriptures are difficult to understand on its own. Therefore, these masters wrote the introductory books to help us understand the main scriptures. In other words, these are all conduits. These are stepping stones, these books, to get us to the Gita, to get us to the Upanishads ultimately. One of the highlights of the Atmabodha is that virtually every verse that we're going to study, this book has got 68 verses. Atmabodha consists of 68 verses. And literally each of the verses has a metaphor or a simile. So one of the methods Atmabodha uses to communicate Vedantic knowledge is the method of comparison. There are 4 methods which are used by the scriptures. First is pratyaksha, second is anumana, third is upama, fourth is agama. Pratyaksha, anumana, upama, agama. Pratyaksha means direct perception. You see something, you know it. You hear something, you know it. You smell something, you know it. Through direct perception, you come to know it. Now the Atman within, you can't smell it, you can't see it, you can't contact through your perceptions. So pratyaksha, the first method, cannot be utilized to find the self within. But the other 3 methods are used. The second method is inference. You don't know it directly, but you infer it. See, suppose you walk past your friend's house and you see his car parked in the driveway, you infer that he's inside because he always goes out with his car. So since his car is there, you infer that your friend is inside the house. It's inference. You've not seen him directly, but you infer based on corroboratory evidences, which is the second method. Third method is upama, comparison. Through known examples, you illustrate the unknown concepts. The self, the Atman within is like petrol in a motor car, is an example that is given to illustrate what is Atman. Now, what does that example mean? Like petrol does not decide how the car goes. The petrol only gives the power to the car. It's the driver who determines how the car goes. Similarly, Atman doesn't decide how you act. So one person acts negatively, other person acts positively. Atman is not responsible. But without Atman, you can't do both these actions. It is the individual who decides which path to take. So it's a comparison. So through comparison, you get some sort of an idea what that Atman is. And then the fourth method is agama. Agama means tradition, which is the path of faith, the path of surrender. When do you surrender? When it goes beyond your intellect, you need to surrender. In fact, it is your intellect that surrenders because the intellect realizes this is beyond my intellect. And therefore, the intellect surrenders to a superior intellect, like the scriptures. You surrender to the scriptures, you surrender to a guru because you understand your intellect is not capable of understanding that. That path of surrender, that path of faith is agama. tradition. 4 methods to gain knowledge. See that. Pratyaksha, perception, anumana, inference, upama, comparison, which is the method mainly used in the Atmabodha, and then agama, tradition. So the Atmabodha was translated into English in 1812 by J. Taylor, and then it became popular all over the world. The knowledge spread all over the world. Now, what is the theme of the Atmabodha? The theme of the Atmabodha is that you have lost your identity. And when you lose your identity, you get involved and entangled in the experiences in the world. Imagine an actor is playing a role on stage, and the actor gets involved in that role. There was a real example of an actor who played the role of Othello. We all know the play Othello, the famous play Othello. And at the end of the play, Othello strangles Desdemona, he kills her, and then kills himself. That's the end of the play. Now, the way this actor enacted that play was so beautiful, so beautiful. The whole audience got up and they were clapping and clapping and clapping and clapping. So beautifully he did it. But what he actually did was he actually strangled her. He actually killed her on stage because he got so caught up in that role, he got so immersed in the role, so involved in the role that he actually killed her. That's why it was so real. Later, he was acquitted because he didn't have a motive to kill her. He was just caught up in that passion of that moment. It's fascinating. So, as an actor, you're not supposed to do it in real life. You do it as if it is real. You almost feel it is real, but it's not real. So, how does the actor not get involved in that role? Because the actor remembers his real identity. I am Mr. So and so. I am Mrs. So and so performing that role. So when the actor loses their identity, then they get involved in that role. And that's exactly what is happening to people. So people are getting involved in the roles. You get affected by your roles. In fact, how do you know that you're involved? Because you're affected, because you're stressed. That's how you know you're involved in your roles. Why do you get involved in your roles? Because you've forgotten your true identity. Your true identity is the self, the Atman within. If you maintain the true identity, you detachedly perform all of the roles. Whatever roles come, you perform. But at all times, you maintain that true identity. I am the self performing this role. I am the self performing this role. So, number one, the Atmabodha takes us back to the true identity. What is your true identity? Number two, the Atmabodha establishes the importance of the knowledge of the self. Without the knowledge of the self, anything else you do is immaterial. It won't help you. Like a dreamer, when a dreamer is in the dream state of consciousness, what will help the dreamer is nothing in the dream will help him. The only thing that will help the dreamer is what? For him to wake up. When the dreamer wakes up and becomes the waker, then all the dream problems are solved. All the dream problems are solved the moment he wakes up. A waker alone knows the waker. When you wake up, you know that you're awake. You don't need confirmation from anybody else. The waker knows the waker. So once the waker wakes up, immediately he knows who he is, who she is. You're freed from all the problems in the dream. The knowledge of waker helps you to get rid of all the sorrows in the dream. Similarly, the knowledge of the Atman, the knowledge of the self, helps you to wake up from this illusory world. You understand this whole world that you're contacting is like a dream. You wake up from that, and all the problems are solved. And thirdly, the importance of sharpening your intellect. Sharpening the intellect is through subjective knowledge, not through objective knowledge. Objective knowledge, you're using your gross intellect. Subjective knowledge, you're using the subtle intellect. When you develop the subtle intellect, not only you develop the subtle intellect, you also develop the gross intellect. Gross intellect is inferior to the subtle intellect. So when you develop the subtle intellect, you develop the gross intellect as well. In other words, when you're thinking about the self and Atman, you also become brilliant in the world. You become successful in the world. Whatever you do in the world, you'll be brilliant. But for which you've got to first strengthen the subtle intellect, which comes through the knowledge of the self. Now, as I chanted the invocatory prayer, it's a different invocatory prayer for this book. So let me explain the invocation. What does that invocation mean before we get on to the verses? So let's look at the invocatory prayer of Atmabodha.
प्रातः स्मरामि हृदि संस्फुरदात्मतत्त्वम् सच्चित् सुखं परमहं सगतिं तुरीयम् यत् स्वप्नजागरसुषुप्तमवेति नित्यम् तद्ब्रह्म निष्कलमहं न च भूतसङ्गः.
Early morning, I contemplate upon Atman, the essential self shining in the heart, which is existence, knowledge, bliss. It is the supreme goal. Fourth, which constantly cognizes the waking dream and deep sleep states. I am that indivisible Brahman, reality, and not the assemblage of elements. Pratasmarami Hridi Samspuradatma Tattvam. Early morning, I contemplate upon that Atman. Satchit Sukham Paramaham Sagatim Turiyam is describing what that Atman is. Yat Swapna Jagara Sushuptam Aveti Nityam Tad Brahma Nishkalamaham. I am that Brahman. I am that consciousness, not this assemblage of elements. Invocation is a short prayer that invokes something within you. It invokes the devotion of your mind and it stimulates the subtle intellect within. When you're using your mind in the world, your mind consists of emotions, it consists of feelings. And these emotions and feelings, when they contact objects and beings in the world, you get attached. You develop attachment to what you have and desire for what you don't have. So two things happens when your mind contacts the world. It develops attachments and desires. And these attachments and desires are that which plays havoc in your mind. Now, when you're coming to a scriptural class like this, when you want to study the scriptures, you can't bring in your attachments. You can't bring in your desires. It becomes an impediment to learning. The knowledge of the self is beyond attachments, beyond desires. That's what this invocation is meant. It meant to keep aside those attachments and desires so that you can gain the knowledge of the self. So it invokes the devotion, stimulates the subtle intellect. That's why Shankara recommends that you study the scripture. For that matter, any scripture you study in the early hours of the morning. Pratasmarami. That's how he starts. Smarami means contemplate, reflect. When? Prata means early morning. I don't know what is your definition of early morning. But the definition of early morning, which is given in the scriptures, is between 4 a.m. to 6 a.m., which may be night according to your definition. You understand? Some people early morning would be 8 to 10. I remember a person used to wake the sleep late. In fact, whole night they'll be awake, sleep early morning, wake up by midday. You understand? So that won't work here. So early hours of the morning means between 4 and 6 a.m., which is also known as Brahma Muhurta. Brahma Muhurta means the time to think of Brahman. There's a scientific basis for that. The scientific basis is during those early hours of morning, your sattvic quality is available to you. See, everybody is made up of three qualities, sattva, rajas, tamas. That combination is different in each person. So why are each of you all different from each other is because of the different permutation and combination of the three gunas. The sattvic quality in you automatically rises up to the surface between 4 and 6 a.m. Suppose you have 20% sattvic quality in you, that 20% is available between 4 and 6 a.m. After 6 a.m., you lose the 20%. Then the rajasic qualities take up, the rajasic tendencies take up your personality. And then by 6 p.m., the tamasic tendencies come up. Let's have a drink. Let's have a drink. So all indulgent thoughts starts coming in at night. The longer and longer you go into the night, 10 a.m. if you go to Las Vegas, what's the point? You understand? When does Las Vegas open? To 10 p.m. So only at night all the indulgences start. Then by 4 a.m. it all stops. The sattvic quality comes. This is a cycle that keeps on going constantly. So sattvic quality is between 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. Rajasic quality is between 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Tamasic qualities is between 6 p.m. to 4 a.m. It is like, suppose you have three gardens. You have three gardens. You have access to three gardens. And the first garden is open only between 4 and 6 a.m. Only between 4 and 6 a.m. you can go to this garden, you can water it, you can tend to the plants, and then it closes, the door closes by 6 a.m., that first garden. Second garden is open 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., the Rajasic garden. And third garden, Tamasic garden, is open at night. Now, since you don't wake up early between 4 and 6 a.m., that first garden, the Sattvic garden, is not tended to at all. You don't open the gate, you don't enter that, you don't water the crops. What will happen? That garden dies. Whereas the Rajasic garden is flourishing, Tamasic garden even more flourishing. You understand? So this is what is happening in the world. Hardly anybody develops their sattvic qualities. They're all fully charged with Rajasic and Tamasic qualities. And they come to a class like this, which is full of sattvic qualities. And now you understand the difficulty in understanding these scriptures because you're not equipped with that quality to be able to relate to this. This is that much effort you need to put in. That's why Shankara gives the recommendation. If you want to study the scriptures, we would recommend early hours of the morning. Tasmarami. See, the benefits of waking up early. What are the benefits? First benefit is during that sattvic time, your mind is naturally calm. Even the most disturbed person, early morning, the mind is calm. Even an addict, you go and find out, even an addict, between 4 and 6 a.m., the addiction is at the lowest because the mind is naturally calm in a sattvic state. You're more composed. When the mind is calm, your intellect is sharp, your intellect is alert. It is easier to develop that intellect in that early morning. Even when children come and ask, what time should we study? I would recommend that early hours of the morning. You understand? See, at night, suppose the child were to spend 4 hours in learning, half an hour in the morning, the child will learn more than 4 hours at night. That is a proportion. The productivity increases tremendously in the sattvic time. Third is the quality time is better. You may spend quality time during the day, but quality time is much better in the early hours. So you need to spend less time to learn more. You need to spend less time to be more productive. If you're smart, you will do that. In fact, some of the CEOs who come to this knowledge take this advice and they apply their business during that early hours of the morning. Suppose they have to prepare for a business meeting, board meeting. I tell them, prepare it in the early hours, 5 o'clock, wake up, sit and prepare. They find it so much more productive than late at night. And then fourth, your productivity increases. There's better productivity. So see that, the benefits of waking up early. Mind naturally calm, easier to develop the intellect, more quality time, and better productivity. You will be successful in every field, whether it is sports, whether it is business, whether it is science, medicine, any field you will be successful if you wake up early. Pratasmarami, he says. Now, the thing is, you wake up early, and what do you do when you wake up early? That is more important. If you read the newspaper between 4 and 6 a.m., you can if you're a journalist. Understand? If you want to be successful as a journalist, then you do that. Otherwise, you're wasting your time. So, or you're checking your phone first thing in the morning, 5 o'clock, Instagram is a waste of time. So, in the early hours of the morning, you contemplate upon the Atman, means that you use your intellect to think of higher knowledge. Now, what is this Atman? What is this essential self? He's describing that. There are adjectival clauses which are describing the Atman. So the first description of Atman he gives, he says, it is the Riddhi. Riddhi means heart. It is that which is shining in the heart. Shining in the heart. See, heart means the core, the essence of your own personality. What is the core, the essence of your personality? It is beyond the body, beyond the mind, beyond the intellect. You're contacting your body, mind, intellect, the material equipments all through your life. But the Atman within is beyond these material equipments. It lies in the core, in the center of your personality. It is shining. Shining means it is alive and bright. Atman is not some deadbeat. That's what he's saying. It's shining, it's alive, it's bright. It is your essential self. See, what does it mean, essential self? Essential self means your original nature. The Atman is your original nature. You've forgotten your original nature, like a person who suffers from amnesia. A person who suffers from amnesia has forgotten who they are. Any object The law of physics. What does the law of physics state? Law of physics states that any object which is not in its original condition is in a state of unrest. You take any object away from its original condition, the object goes into a state of unrest until it comes back to its original condition. We give the standard example of a coil spring. You take a coil spring, which is 4 foot in height, and you compress that coil spring. When you compress that coil spring to 1 foot, what happens? There is a pressure pushing the palm upwards. The spring is pushing that palm upwards. There's so much of pressure. You release it to 2 feet, the pressure reduces. You release it to 3 feet, the pressure reduces. You bring it back to 4 feet, which is its original height. There's no pressure. If you want to find coil springs, you may find it in your mattress, but don't rip up your mattress open, to try this at home. But the experiment is that you press. Even a simple thing could be even a sponge. You take a sponge and compress it, even the same thing. Or you take a stick, a wooden stick, and you bend it. There's pressure on that stick because it's not in its original position. You bring it back to the original position, no pressure. So any object which is not in its original condition is in a state of unrest until it gets back to its original condition. Similarly, your original state is the state of the Atman. When you're not in the state of the Atman, there is a pressure. What is that pressure? There is a pressure for pleasure, pressure for joy, pressure for happiness. And you're trying to fulfill that pressure for pleasure in different ways. But that won't satisfy you. You need to get back to your original state. Until you get back to the original state, that pressure will not leave you. There are people who do all the cosmetic surgeries, plastic surgery. They want to look good. They want to feel good about themselves. Our latest fad is what? Monjaro. Huh? Everybody and anybody and everybody are on Monjaro now. So you believe, okay, I do that, I'll be happier. I'll feel better. I'll feel more confident about myself. Yes, temporarily you'll feel, but if you want that permanent bliss, permanent satiation, none of these things will help you. The only thing that will help you is you get closer and closer to your essential self. So that's the original nature. And what is this? See, again, the scriptures give this description of the Atman. They say the Atman is Satchitanand. Some of you might have heard this, Satchitanand. Here, Shankara says Satchit Sukham. Instead of Anand, he uses the word Sukham. They mean the same. He's just using a different word, but it means the same. Satchit Sukham. Sat means existence. Chit means consciousness. Sukham means joy, happiness. Sat Chit Sukham means existence, knowledge, bliss. Atman is existence, knowledge, bliss. Now, how do these three things combine? What is existence, knowledge, bliss combined? What is the significance of this? The significance is Atman pervades this world. The whole world is pervaded by Atman, by Brahman. And what does the world consists of? World consists of inert objects, living beings. Inert objects exist. That is the first one. Sat. Sat is existence. Existence refers to inert objects which exist. Living beings not only exist, but living beings gain knowledge. And you gain knowledge in the waking and dream states. In the deep sleep state, there is no knowledge. You're in bliss. So living beings go through waking, dream, deep sleep states, which is indicated as knowledge and bliss. Knowledge refers to waking and dream states, bliss to the deep sleep state. So Satchit Sukham, existence, knowledge, bliss, refers to inert objects, living beings, because the Atman pervades the whole world. Early morning, I contemplate upon Atman, the essential self, shining in the heart, which is existence, knowledge, bliss. It is the supreme goal. Once you achieve that goal, there is nothing more to be achieved. And it is also described as Turiam. Turiam means fourth. Fourth, in the sense that it is beyond the experiences that you're going in life. See, you're going through three experiences: waking, dream, deep sleep. Right now, at least I can see that the people who switched on the video are in the waking state of consciousness. I don't know the others. So, the waking state of consciousness, you are awake in this waking state of consciousness. When you go to sleep, you become the dreamer who goes through the deep dream state of consciousness. The dreamer is different from the waker. When I say that statement, I know none of you will understand that. But I'm still saying it. Because someday one of you may question, oh, is it different? How is the dreamer different from the waker? I didn't understand that. I thought the dreamer is part of the waker. No, the dreamer is a different personality than the waker. And then you go into the third state of consciousness, which is deep sleep. When you wake up, you say, I had such a sound sleep. There was no dreams. It was so peaceful. What is that state? Deep sleep, dreamless sleep. Jagrat, Swapna, Sushupti. Jagrat is the waking state. Swapna, dream state. Sushupti, deep sleep state. Deep sleep state, everybody is blissful. Sometimes people ask, shall I remain in deep sleep? It is so blissful. I come to waking state, I get so agitated. Look at everybody, I get even more agitated. Dream also, sometimes I have no control. I get little disturbing dreams. But when I go to deep sleep, total bliss, total bliss. Is deep sleep the state of self-realization? Some people ask, no. Deep sleep is not the state of self-realization, because in deep sleep, you are ignorant of the self. It is a state of ignorance. The bliss that you're experiencing in deep sleep is the bliss of ignorance. That is not true bliss. But the bliss of self-realization is the bliss of knowledge. It is not the bliss of ignorance. The self-realization is beyond deep sleep. That's why they use the word turiam, fourth. Fourth in the sense, beyond waking, beyond dream, beyond deep sleep. Which constantly cognizes the waking, dream, and deep sleep. So not only it is in the fourth state, that Atman also pervades the waking, dream, deep sleep states. I am that indivisible Brahman and not the assemblage of elements. A powerful reminder that Shankara gives. So first thing in the morning, you could also use this as a prayer. When you wake up early morning and you want to study, you can use this prayer. It'll take you a few seconds, that's all. Tasmarami Didam Spuradatma Tattvam Achit Sugam. You just recite this prayer once and then start your study. It'll charge you up. I am that Brahman. I'm not the assemblage of elements. I'll explain that bit in the next class next week, and then we will start the verses next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhaskarji.